Hello and welcome to the vlog. I've had a request from a viewer who said, how do you light the stove? How do you get it nice and toasty in the morning? So I thought I'd do a viewer request vlog. From the outset, let me state that there are probably as many ways to light a fire as there are grains of sand in the universe. It's very much a personal thing. What works for you may not be what works for me. And all I can show you is how I do mine. And you may sit there thinking, that's rubbish, you need to do it completely differently. Well, look, this method works for me, gets the stove nice and hot, so fine. But if you do have any tips, obviously, leave them in the comments and queries below. But there is no right or wrong, really, to lighting the fire. It's whatever works for you. Now, that said, I'm going to show two lightings. Firstly, lighting from cold. As you can see here, although the stove fan is actually just about going round a little bit, that's just some residual heat from the fire bricks. The stove itself is completely out, there's virtually no coal left in it, just a couple of tiny little unburnt bits. So this is lighting it from scratch. And then after this, I'll do a relighting it, which is what I normally do in the mornings. You find there's a few embers still glowing and you just need to give it a bit of a kick to get it going again. So I'll do that one afterwards. Before we do any lighting though, first thing to do is clean this glass because it just gets charcoaled up horribly. There are some stoves that have a clever way of drawing the air over the glass so it doesn't get disgusting, but mine just gets filthy all the time and I want to be able to see that nice warming glow. So what I do is just get a bit of damp paper towel, get some ashes from the fire. And this is a tip I learned somewhere online, I think. The ashes have just enough granularity in them to give them a bit of grit to clean all the charcoal off the glass. So I'm just going to shift around here, but it does take a little bit of effort. And I haven't done it for a couple of days, so it's probably worse than it is usually. In fact, it definitely is worse than it is usually. But the old bit of ash scrapes through all the char on the charcoal. A cup of char would be nice. All the charcoal on the glass, and with a bit of graft you actually have a nice clean window to the fire again. Right, that will do for the purposes of demonstration. It's also very handy to have one of these at times like this because you do get a lot of mess on the floor. So quick tidy up just so that I'm not sitting in all this muck, and I'll vacuum that up later. Right, now we turn to the business of fire lighting. I've got coal, I've got kindling, and I have zip firelighters. I know some people don't like using firelighters, but frankly, why not? You light them and they go whoosh. So perfect. It's quite an artistic little venture, this setting the fire. I like to be a little bit precise about it. Other people may shovel coal on, but I stick the firelighter roughly in the middle, and then I build a little base of coal around it. If you don't put coal around it, once all the wood's gone, all the coal sort of collapses in on itself. So I like to have a base so that it doesn't really collapse. So we'll have a piece there, another piece there. I do a little circle of coal round the firelighter. And of course what I usually do is end up surrounding it and then realising I can't actually get the match to the firelighter anymore. But I'll try not to do that this time, as I've made a point of remembering it. So we'll have 4 there. We'll have one at the back there. Then we'll have some little bits at the back, little half bits to sort of stop it all collapsing there. Okay, that's enough coal for the base, I think. And now I'll stick some kindling on. Select some nice bits. Let's have one of those. Let's have one of those. And let's have one of those. And then I'll put some crossways. This is where my tendency to line things up gets a bit weird because I like to make it all perfectly parallel. Just bear with me, I like it like that. Next step is more coal, which I will put, how shall I put it, that way? Yes, I think that way. So we'll have one there and one there. This is where it's like a game of Jenga. Suddenly it all falls apart and then I get very annoyed. But oh, here we go, it's starting to fall. Come on back, you. We want a little bit of What I'm trying to leave is some sort of airspace between the coal and the wood so that all the flames can properly ventilate. That's all right. Now I need to put some more down the sides again. And obviously I'm putting absolutely huge amounts of coal in here, and generally I find that if you are starting it from cold, you do need that. Okay, at the moment this is actually not stone cold, but if it was, and if the boat was stone cold, it's going to take a lot of heat to get the fire bricks up to temperature and get the heat radiating. So you do need to pack a lot of coal in and really get it roaring for the first half hour to an hour to get the heat going. Once it's all done, you can turn it down to just the tiniest simmer, the little orange glow. But getting it started from cold, you definitely want to go a bit overboard with the coal. So we'll have some down the side there. We'll have another one down the side there. Actually, we'll get two down the side there, that's good. And then a couple at the front here. It almost seems a shame to set light to it. Right, we're building up a little pyramid. We'll have some more there. Another one there. Possibly another one at the back. Yeah, this is going to be a raging inferno. So that's splendid. And in a minute, I'll probably want a couple at the front here. What I tend to find is that the wood at the front sends the flames frontwards and they make the glass all mucky. So I try to block them with a bit of coal. I've still got access to my fire lighter, just about, but I will end up having, what I need is a little one there, and I can then balance another brick on, or another 2 bricks perhaps, to stop it. There we go, to stop those flames. So we'll have those in reserve. Just for a second, I'm going to throw the bits of paper I used to clean the glass in. They may as well burn, they've got coal dust on them. And that is pretty much it, ready to go. All I need to do now is get a match, stick it on the fire lighter, whoosh, that'll go straight up. The kindling will catch, and then the coal will catch. The trick to this, obviously, is that this front door will be shut, so you need to get lots and lots of air going into it from underneath. So I open up the bottom here, which is where you get to the ash pan, and I will leave it open like probably about like that, and that will just suck vast amounts of air in up the chimney, and it will roar and roar. And I'll show you how I then sort of you tune it over time to give it less and less air till it simmers down. So for the moment I'll open that a bit and I'll just get some matches. The other thing I'm going to need is my coal grate, which needs to go back on the front. That just slots in there. I took that out while I was laying the fire. So, one jumbo kitchen super safety match. Right, that's away. Good. Now I'll put my bits of coal in on the front. Just stop it making a mess. Stay. And the fire grate. There we go. Oh, come on. Ugh, hold on a minute. I may have to slot that one in afterwards. Fire grate. There we go. Right. Shut the door before all the smoke starts coming out and setting the fire alarm off. Open that, and you can see how the draw of the air is absolutely setting those kindling sticks ablaze. And if I hold the microphone closer, you can probably hear it. There's also the noise of a boat going past me. That's nothing to do with the fire, but you can hear it. So with that thoroughly ablaze, I'll leave the door propped open a bit. The front vents here, which are the ones you normally use for controlling the fire, they're open fully as well. And after about 5 minutes, I would shut that, but still leave the vents open. And then gradually you start turning them down. So we'll come back in a couple of minutes, see how it's doing. As you can see, it's now roaring away very well. There's a good sort of orangey glow coming right from the core of the fire, which means that that's all nicely lit. I think most of the wood has disappeared by now. The core coal is going, and it's probably time to just start adjusting this vent now, so that instead of being fully open, I can put it about... It's a ridiculously fine art, this, because it sort of goes from lots of air to nothing, and you end up moving it fractions of a millimetre, and then it goes too hot or too cold. So this might just be my Puffin stove, I don't know. This is a Villager Puffin, but I can probably turn that down to almost shut, and it will reduce the flames to just a sort of very gentle flame, but you just get more of the orange glow, and the heat just keeps on radiating. So that is lighting my fire from cold. Let me now, by the magic of televisual editing, transport you to a different day when I relight that fire from mildly warm. I left the fire banked up a lot last night, put it on simmer. It is still warm, not desperately warm. I can put my hand here quite easily, but I can feel warmth coming off it. The stove fan is still going around, so in amongst all the ash there should be a couple of hot coals which will act, if you like, as firelighters. So I just add to them a bit of kindling, bit of new coal, and with any luck it should all spring into action when you apply some oxygen through the bottom vent. So the first thing to do is just open it up, have a little look, and it mainly just looks like a load of old ash. But if I get my poker, and also I use the tool which I pull the ash pan out with, and stir this around a bit, underneath all that ash there is still some nice warm coals, which I can definitely feel on my hand. It's not burning hot, it's only sort of mildly warm. Now some stoves have a control on the side that you can wiggle to sugar all the old ash out. Mine doesn't. Mine's a fairly basic stove, I would say. So you just get in there with tools and jiggle things about, and you just want to get rid of all that useless old ash out. So that what you're left with... Oh, actually, I tell you what, there's not a lot of hot coal in there this morning. We might be all right. We'll have to see. This doesn't always work. This doesn't always work. We'll have to have a look-see. So there are reasonably hot coals, which have a bit of an orange glow about them. Now this next bit you have to do fairly quickly, because as soon as you start putting the kindling on them, if they're going to go, they will start smoking. And since you've got the door open, the smoke comes out, sets the fire alarm off. So you need to have kindling and coal. So just lay some kindling down here, little selection of it, that'll do, and then throw in some coal. I'm quite artistic with my coal. I like to place it strategically on top of things, and also you need to place it so that as the wood burns down, the coal all starts then falling through, and you need it to sort of fall onto a bed of coal so that you get a nice good roaring solid in the middle. That'll probably, actually I'll have another one in there, I think. That'll do. Now the glass on my stove has completely blackened up. I might consider cleaning it, but I'm not going to for the purposes of this demonstration. I can just see that the wood is starting to smoke. So now what I'll do is shut that one and open the bottom drawer. Now on some stoves you have top controls and bottom controls. Again, mine only has the bottom control, but if you open this, it's now letting lots of air in at the bottom up through the wood, and that is going to, it's like blowing on a fire. It's going to give it lots of combustion. In the meantime, while it thinks about doing that, I shall use the tool and empty the ashtray of all that ash that I've just wiggled out, being very careful because of course some of this will still be very hot ash and hot embers. So, and at this point you get a massive cloud of coal dust. Honestly, you cannot be house proud in a boat that has a stove, because there's just dust everywhere. It's lovely to have the stove, but coal dust is all over the place. Right, with that open, that's the maximum air we can get in there. Of course, if the glass was clean, I'd see what was going on, but it's just a nightmare keeping this glass clean. But I can hear little crackles, which imply that that wood is catching. And in a minute, when it does catch, usually even through the blackened glass, you'll see it going and you know that it's gone. I really don't want to open it up again. There'll be a massive cloud of smoke and then the smoke alarm goes off. So just give it a second and suddenly, whoosh, it will just catch and go. Having got it going, this doesn't need to stay open for long. That's really just to give it that initial whoosh of air. So I would now tend to put it not quite shut, but just, it's got a little bit of an edge open there so that it can continue to draw some air in. And then over the next 5 minutes or so, I'll eventually just shut that, but leaving all the front vents open. And then about 5 minutes after that, I start shutting the vents down and put it onto a sort of, well, it's very hard to control this thing, but you give it a sliver of vent, which is just enough to give it enough air to keep the coal going and keep the boat warm, but not so much that you're roaring through the coal too quickly, and not so little that it's just not putting out enough heat. It's a heck of a fine art, and it's taken me weeks and weeks to get used to this stove. But yeah, it's possibly time to shut that up now. The trouble is, if you shut it up too early and the coal hasn't really warmed up and caught, then you run the risk of it just not properly catching. But I would say that's probably all right, so I'm going to shut that down now, lock that off, but leave these vents fully open for another 5 minutes and then start shutting them down. And that is how I relight a fire when there's still some hot coals in there.